Welcome. Today we will delve into a mystery that challenges all notions of technological progress at the beginning of the last century. At the heart of this investigation is a mysterious photograph from 1903, which appears to defy everything we know about the capabilities of that time. In a short interval captured in the image, faces, weapons, metals, smoke, and even cigarette butts in the grass, all depicted with such detail that achieving such results with standard cameras and small negatives of that era was impossible. Why then does this photograph look as if it was taken with modern equipment? And who could have created such advanced technology more than a century ago? At a time when most believed that technology remained within known limits, could secret military developments, ahead of their time, have existed in the shadows of history? Where is all this leading? The stakes are not only a mystery of past technologies, but the true cost and meaning of hidden scientific breakthroughs that could have permanently altered the course of military history and reconnaissance. In this video, we will assemble all the disparate details, compare evidence, and uncover a shocking picture. Who and how created the technologies concealed behind this photograph? And why was it kept silent for over a century? Are you ready to unveil a secret that could change our understanding of the entire history of arms and intelligence? Then let's begin. In the distant and glorious year of 1903, when the world was just beginning to take its first steps into a new era of technology and science, mysteries, challenges, and undisclosed secrets crystallized among ordinary photographs. Cameras of that period were simple, small, designed for everyday and field use. By their 10th year, they had already achieved significant progress, but even the most skilled and expensive devices of that era could hardly capture every tiny detail, every fiber on a button, every shade in the faces of soldiers. They were not intended to produce photographs with such incredible clarity that faces, clothing, weapons, smoke, and even cigarette butts in the grass could be discerned. And this is where the shadow of doubt, the coveted secret, emerged, baffling many researchers. On the photograph from that time period, 1,250 soldiers of the Kikhholm regiment are captured, an army unit long since vanished into history. When researchers first saw it, they were filled with skepticism, because in an era when most cameras used small negatives and optics were quite primitive, such clear and detailed depictions of large-scale military scenes seemed impossible. Compact cameras, using negatives only a few centimeters in size, could not produce images with such high resolution. It was obvious. Something was wrong. And the question of what exactly remained a compelling reason for them to dig deeper. The reverse side of the photograph revealed no obvious clues, only the date and the regiment's name. No model of the camera, no photographer's name. There is no hint of any technical specifications, nor any traces of descriptions or markings characteristic of that era. This emptiness heightened the impression, or perhaps even served as direct evidence, that the photograph was taken with some secret device inaccessible to the general public. It could easily have been a covert weapon or experimental technology. After all, it was typical for Russia's scientific and military circles in the 20th century to develop and implement cutting-edge technologies, often remaining hidden behind a veil of secrecy. Further investigation led scientists to unexpected discoveries. Archives revealed information about developments in highly precise optical instruments. Not just standard lenses, but systems with enhanced flexibility, increased luminosity, and higher resolution, allowing images with details invisible to conventional cameras of that time. These developments were closely linked to advanced military research, which, during the technological era, advanced hand in hand with progress in optics. And most surprisingly, one of these documents mentioned an engineer named Nikolai Vervey, a specialist who created specialized lenses for military purposes. His work drew particular attention from military officials of the time. Some experts speculated that this was not merely an accidental experiment or a rare coincidence, but the result of deliberate use of advanced, yet hidden technologies developed in secret laboratories of the Russian military. Probably, that is why traces of these unique devices disappear from public sources, and such photographs remain a mystery. What, then, was the purpose of these technologies? To equip the troops with means surpassing all existing standards? Or something much more serious? breaking through the limits of contemporary technology, something unique and potentially even dangerous to the balance of military power. The discovery of unique geodetic instruments and complex optical elements at the edges of the photograph also suggested that something greater was being created than just a high-quality image. Perhaps it was the merging of photographic and geodetic technologies, developments that allowed for precise terrain mapping, the use of special cameras for military reconnaissance, cartography, or even punitive operations. Such instruments could have formed the basis for automated reconnaissance systems that were not widely documented, known only to a select few authorities. Moreover, in the history of Russian scientific and technological development, a figure suddenly emerged, Nikolai Vervey. His name is associated with the creation of highly sophisticated optical elements capable of providing exceptional image quality. His work, corroborated by scientists, engineers, and archival documents, confirms that the possibility of highly advanced equipment surpassing the standards of that time did exist. And if that's the case, what if such cameras at that time were nothing more than secret projects hidden from the public eye? Supporting this idea, researchers discovered in the collections of a museum in Rovno a similar scale and highly detailed photograph, taken during the same years. Its quality and the level of detail indicate the use of technologies that could not have been implemented by ordinary means. These images are not just isolated exceptions. They are evidence that technology, which seemed impossible, was already in the hands of those who could afford it. But why do scientific and historical chronicles contain no mention of such developments? Why was this subject kept secret? And most importantly, who, when, and how created, and continues to create, these mysterious, ultra-modern cameras? So, the main question looming over this story is, was it possible at the beginning of the last century to achieve a level of photographic or optical technology that completely upends our conventional understanding of the technological capabilities of that era? If so, how? Could this photograph serve as proof that our narrative about technological progress is only the tip of the iceberg? What secrets lie behind its invisible boundaries, if it is not a random artifact, but a reflection of secret developments that outpaced their time? If all of this is true, then who made this equipment and how? On what technological and scientific horizons was that team of scientists and engineers working? Why has this story remained hidden, obscured, and covered by layers of secrecy? What are the unsaid aspects of this photograph? And how could it change our understanding of military and scientific development? How can we understand what is hidden inside it? And what if this seemingly unremarkable photograph is just a small fragment of a grand mystery that could overturn our views on time, progress, and the possibilities of human science? In the distant pivotal years at the beginning of the 20th century, when the world was just entering an era of astonishing technological change, the secrets behind the veil of time seemed to elude even the most experienced eyes. During this era, when revolutionary ideas replaced old social structures and scientific discoveries openly shook the foundations of understanding reality, a question arose that still haunts historians, engineers, and researchers. How did a single photograph, seemingly taken straight from a science fiction film, end up preserved in archives? It all began with an ordinary archaeological museum, where among dozens of exhibits, an ancient photograph was found in one of the dark cabinets. The time of its creation was a few months after the events that raised numerous questions. At first glance, it was a typical photo, a seascape, fishermen on boats, and seemingly unremarkable details. But further investigation revealed something astonishing. Part 4 of 8. The technological progress that arrived much later allowed for rescanning the image at a resolution of 800 dots per inch, making it possible to examine the tiniest details that even modern technologies would overlook. When specialists, armed with this high resolution, began to carefully study the photograph, every small element caught their attention. Buttons on the uniform, medals on the chest, facial expressions, even smoke and cigarette butts scattered on the deck. What was particularly astonishing to the researchers was that during an era when photographic technologies were still in their infancy, such level of detail seemed impossible. Cameras of that time, although complex mechanisms, could not reasonably provide such clarity. On the back of the negative, there was a clear indication: model, size, camera type. But, and here begins the most mysterious part, information about the model was absent. No name, no number, nothing that could help identify the source of the image. It seemed as if this photograph did not fit within the usual technological framework of that era. The community of experts gathered at international exhibitions in Moscow, Berlin, London, and Gomel unanimously noted something was wrong here. The high resolution, grain quality, and even the characteristic optical features of the frame all indicated that there was something more than meets the eye in this photograph. And of course, this led to discussions and discoveries. Shortly after the experts' long analytical reflections, they came upon evidence that shocked many. It was documentary confirmation, a huge camera of enormous size with an objective about a meter in diameter. Only such a device could provide such impressive detail. At that time, it was simply impossible to construct anything similar, explained a specialist whose reasoning was based on technical documents and diagrams from that era. But how to explain the appearance of such a giant camera? The family of one of the heroes, Victor Mageni, shared their memories. According to them, entire teams worked on the construction of this camera, building scaffolding and assembling enormous glass sheets, manually lifting heavy basic structures into hard-to-reach places. They spoke of hardships, nighttime disputes, and how the whole project was shrouded in secrecy, as if hidden from the eyes of outsiders. These stories supported the features of the photograph itself. It was clearly taken from a very high vantage point, under conditions suggesting an extraordinary scale of lifting mechanisms. The inability to ignore the information about Nikolai Vervey, an engineer, a specialist in optical systems who worked for the military, was also striking. His name appeared in documents of that period as the creator of advanced systems for observation and reconnaissance, as confirmed by professional reports and public mentions, creating devices capable of capturing the tiniest details from great distances. This would be precisely what allowed the concealment of technologies that surpassed all possible existing developments at the time. It is possible that he was the link between technical innovations and secret military projects that the country began to master long before the start of the First World War. And what unites all these facts? Rumors and speculation began to overshadow ideological concepts about the development of technology at the beginning of the century. A central conflict emerges in the presented picture. Where could such advanced photographic equipment have appeared in the year when civilization was only laying the foundations of its technical knowledge? And how could it have fallen into the hands of researchers just a few years after its supposed development? Was it a matter of time, political climate, technological achievements, or perhaps something darker and more hidden? Were there secret laboratories unknown to the public where devices were created, tools capable of observing and recording the invisible, made possible only through clandestine military initiatives? The complexity of this question embodies the entire era, because the obvious discrepancy between the technological capabilities of the time and what this photograph demonstrated pointed to one great truth: something was concealed. And these investigations, these inquiries, are not just attempts to shed light on a single image, but a deep dive into an entire hidden layer of history, where the line between science and military technology blurs, and faith in technological progress and truth is buried beneath layers of secrecy. And if these hypotheses are confirmed, an even more urgent question arises: who exactly was behind the creation of this mysterious equipment? Perhaps it was a voice of scientific thought, ahead of its time, or, more gloomily, a part of a grand plan to develop secret technologies capable of altering the course of history. Why was all this hidden? Why did it vanish? Could this photograph be a piece of a mosaic forming a grand picture? The prehistory of modern intelligence networks? The the first steps toward developing covert surveillance technologies? If these hypotheses prove true, an incredible perspective opens up. This is not just a photograph. It is proof of the existence, at the very beginning of the century, of technologies that until then seemed like fantasy. It is evidence, concealing secrets of the pre-war era, those periods when nations fought for innovation, pushed the boundaries of possibility to achieve dominance. And perhaps this very photograph is the thread that could lead to uncovering the most secret of that era. At first glance, it appears to be a simple photograph, a black and white image, a frozen moment of time, captured in the stark reflection of a historical epoch. But all it takes is to look more deeply, and a whole universe unfolds before us, filled with secrets that transform our entire understanding of the beginning of the century. This photograph is not just a picture, it is a key to comprehending a whole series of events, technologies, and human fates that influence the development of modern intelligence and military science. Gazing into these faces, we begin to realize, behind each line of the portraits lie layers of historical facts, new hypotheses, and theories that can change established perspectives, overturn our notions of technological progress, the role of family archives, and how a small, seemingly insignificant artifact can become a witness to global events. Historical information about who these people are and the services they dedicated themselves to sounds like a tale from another century. This regiment, founded 30 years before Peter the Great's uprising, symbolizes an era when Russia stepped into a new age. Established by imperial decree in the early 18th century, it became a source of pride and support for the state. Its participation in 20 wars, travels across 4 continents. All of this shaped not only its combat capacity, but also national identity. Raised in difficult conditions, these soldiers received medals that today recall the heroic days of their service. Silver trumpets, the Air Service Badge, orders, and ribbons. Their names are fragments of European history, pulsating on Russia's face, transformed into heroic legends. 80 years later, in the early 19th century, this regiment transitioned into the Guards, a symbol of the privileged elite, and each new medal enhances their eternal memory. But the most intriguing part of the story, regarding the lives of these soldiers, is not only their service. In the image, which researchers today regard as one of the most mysterious documentary artifacts, are captured over 200 faces. Many of them we recognize thanks to further research, through fates passed down from generation to generation in family chronicles. In these faces lie the history of millions of destinies, children whose names they bore, grandchildren they never knew, and the entire nation whose heroism built the future of Russia. In each of these portraits is not just a snapshot in time, but a living testament, a testimony that on the day the photograph was taken, which, judging by everything, was not merely a photographic procedure, but a carefully prepared event requiring absolute stillness. A special atmosphere of strict professionalism and symbolic importance was present. When the light and warmth of the spotlight flooded the scene, and the camera crew worked in harmony with a high standard of discipline, these soldiers remained motionless, seemingly obeying not only the photographer's hand, but also the will of an entire era. Discovering family relics, pocket watches, medals, letters, only emphasizes how profound was the personal and societal context of this photograph. The letters that have survived to our days tell of the day when this photograph was taken. The evidence supporting the words of old family chronicles about a professional session, about a well-organized photo shoot, all point to a complex system of interactions between advanced technologies and military structures. And it is here that the first question arises. What if these photographs, taken in that era, are not just official records, but a carefully planned experiment, an attempt to capture on film what would later be developed for secret purposes? Particular attention should be paid to the evidence from modern research. Investigations indicate that behind this photograph stands not just a camera, but a technology that, according to some reports, was so advanced that it could be considered a breakthrough in military photo reconnaissance. Images of another regiment, specifically the St. Petersburg Regiment, have been discovered from the same period, where cameras created according to unique projects, even developed abroad, were used. And here, an astonishing question arises. How could the Russian army, seemingly restrained and secretive, employ technologies that were ahead of their time? Today, these hypotheses are confirmed not only by archives, but also by testimonies from specialists stating that at the very beginning of the 20th century, in secret laboratories and special units, experiments were conducted with cameras capable not only of capturing images, but also of transmitting crucial data about an enemy's military technical condition. Analysis suggests that these discoveries are not the result of mere coincidence or a period of technological upheaval, but the outcome of covert work. The first to be involved in this work were scientists and engineers, organized into small secret groups. They succeeded in developing or adapting cameras with such sophisticated technical designs that these devices could serve both military and intelligence purposes. The historical evidence concerning Nikolai Vervey, an engineer leading developments in miniature cameras, supports the hypothesis that Russia, starting from the early 20th century, was already on the path of technological breakthroughs, hidden behind a veil of secrecy. Intelligence work, as is well known, is a game on the border of invisibility, and stories about secret laboratories and technological experiments, about hideouts where prototypes of unique devices were developed, tell us that this boundary was crossed, and that not all information stayed hidden. Combining the facts, it becomes clear. This photograph is not just a historical document, but part of a broader, much more significant picture. It is the result of the integration of cutting-edge technologies created through the efforts of scientists, engineers, and military strategists. And it is precisely these technologies that gave rise to new capabilities, reformed methods of photography and reconnaissance, which laid the foundation for future eras. It can be said that this seemingly simple photograph is actually a film, a compression and decoding of an era marked by a technological breakthrough, an event that literally laid the groundwork for what we now call modern photo and video reconnaissance. This discovery, this mystery, challenges traditional paradigms of historical science. The transmission of images across generations, the fates of family archives, all of it becomes a bridge connecting the personal and the military, the past and the future. In every generation, there is a moment when new discoveries allow us to view history from a fresh perspective. If among these images there is a method that sparked the development of global reconnaissance technologies, then it means that behind each artifact lies not just luck, but a systematic evolution, a strategic move that had a decisive impact on the course of history. The main question arises: could this photograph hold the key to a breakthrough, to uncovering the secret behind the technological leap that underpinned a new epoch? And how significant are family histories, passed down through generations, in interpreting it? These questions remain unanswered, but one thing is clear. If the hypothesis about secret cameras and technological innovations is confirmed, it will completely change our understanding of military intelligence, the fight for information control, and the development of new documentation methods. And what other unknown pages of history await us? If only we can find the right artifacts, like this photograph, which seems to have absorbed not only light, but also the burdens, secrets, and hopes of entire eras.